You are listening to KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank, your partner in possible.
I mean, I think with me, I'm not going to be scared to throw it. I mean, I'm going to keep shooting. I think that's what it takes in order to win. You don't want to play scared and timid, and when you throw an interception, kind of shut down. And I think that's a worse way. You lose games that way.
I agree with Patrick Mahomes, and despite the 3 interceptions, a pretty good game from Mahomes outside of those 3 plays, which we'll hear a little bit more from him later in this show. But that game yesterday between the Chiefs and Broncos, based on what we heard at KC Sports Network on our live post-game show last night, Chiefs fans seem to be pretty split on how to feel about it, but the facts are the Chiefs left Denver with a 34-28 victory and now stay with that 10-3 record, stay atop the AFC with the Buffalo Bills for the best record in the conference, keeping their shot at a first-round bye and home field advantage in the playoffs very much alive. I'm BJ Kissel, and thanks for tuning in to this episode of 10 Things presented by our friends at KC Strength and Conditioning. If you know somebody in the Kansas City area who needs baseball or softball training ages 8 to 18, call my friend John Renzi at 913-638-8960. That's KC Strength and Conditioning, your go-to place for baseball or softball training in the Kansas City area. Now, this particular show, 10 Things, if this is your first time watching it, know this. This is about information, stats, records, nuggets, and fun things to help you look smarter to your friends. And these things I'm going to go through, they're what stood out to me, the records, the pace, all of those cool little nuggets. These are 10 things that stood out to me following Sunday's win over the Broncos. It's also our attempt to help not normalize the greatness that we're watching in this golden age of Chiefs football right now. It's never been better time to be a Chiefs fan, and here is more context to prove it. Starting with number 1, the Chiefs reach 1,000-game milestone. Just a cool nugget in the franchise's history. That was the 1,000th game played between the regular season and postseason, and the Chiefs during that time have a 534 to 454-12 record. So they've got a winning record across the 1,000 games in their franchise's history. Pretty cool little nugget. Not something I heard during the broadcast, and maybe I missed it, but did not hear them talk about that. But pretty cool little nugget there. All right, number 2. Chiefs continue their streak against the Broncos with the 34-28 win at Denver. That was Kansas City's 14th consecutive win over the Broncos, one of their AFC West rivals, and that extends the franchise record for the most consecutive wins against a single opponent. The streak of 14 straight wins against the Broncos ties for the 5th longest streak of wins against a single opponent in NFL history. Again, looking at just the Chiefs record book, this consecutive streak of 14 games is the longest ever. Started on November 15th, 2015, obviously extends through the game on Sunday. And it's fun to know that the second longest streak in franchise history for most wins against an opponent was also the Denver Broncos, but that was from November 1st, 1964 through November 27th of 1969. So been a while since the Chiefs had won that many games against another particular opponent. All right, and then in terms of the NFL record book for most consecutive victories versus a single opponent, this is going back to 1970. Again, Chiefs tied for the 5th longest streak of consecutive wins. They get one more against Denver. Looks like New Year's Day, I believe they meet again. That would be the 15th win. That would move them into a tie for 3rd place with the New England Patriots had won 15 straight against the Buffalo Bills from December 27th, 2003 to December 26th, 2010. And then the Washington Commanders, then the football team, the Redskins, Washington had beaten Detroit 15 straight times back from October 11th, 1970 through November 9th, 1997. So jumping across divisions there. And then the most, if you are curious, is the Miami Dolphins over the Buffalo Bills, won 20 straight games from October 28th, 1970 to October 14th, 1979. So still have a little ways to go. Still got a few years before they can get to flirting with the NFL record for most consecutive wins. But like the streak that the Chiefs are on right now, always great to beat your opponent, especially when we're talking about a division rival. Let's move on to number 3. That's Andy Reid hits double-digit wins again. With that win against the Broncos, Coach Reid now has recorded his 17th season as an NFL head coach with at least 10 wins in a season. It moves him out of a tie with Pro Football Hall of Fame coach Tom Landry for sole possession of the third most 10-win seasons by a head coach in NFL history. Again, these are the types of things that is about not normalizing what we've seen. Andy Reid has now been in Kansas City for 10 years, has the most wins at Arrowhead for a Chiefs head coach. I believe he got that just a couple weeks ago, passing Marty Schottenheimer. But right now, Andy Reid trails only Pro Football Hall of Fame coach Don Shula and one day Hall of Fame head coach Bill Belichick, who both have 20 seasons of at least 10 wins. And Andy Reid now has 8 straight 10-win seasons with the Chiefs from 2015 all the way through this year, already getting that 10th win here in week 14. And that's tying George Seifert for the longest streak of 10-win seasons by a head coach in NFL history. He now only trails Bill Belichick's NFL record of 17 consecutive seasons with at least 10 wins. So in terms of consecutive seasons, got a little ways to go, but overall, Andy Reid special to be in the conversation with coaches like Don Shula, Bill Belichick, and those guys for the 10-win season. So pretty special. Another way to not normalize the consistent success that we've seen under Andy Reid here in Kansas City. All right, moving on to number 4, Travis Kelce shatters the record books. Kelce's got a lot of stuff, so buckle up. We've got a lot of Travis Kelce nuggets right now. With his 71 receiving yards on his 4 catches in Sunday's game, Travis Kelce eclipsed the 10,000-yard receiving mark for his career. If you've been on social media or watched the game, they talked about it quite a bit as Kelce becomes just the second player and second tight end in franchise history to reach 10,000 career receiving yards, with the Chiefs joining Pro Football Hall of Famer Tony Gonzalez. Kelce is the 5th tight end in NFL history to eclipse 10,000 career receiving yards and now sits just 16 yards shy of passing Pro Football Hall of Fame tight end Shannon Sharpe for 4th place on the all-time list for receiving yards by a tight end. Again, we've talked about Kelce being the greatest tight end in NFL history, and the more numbers he continues to put up, the more of these types of things he continues to do. Again, sitting right now 5th all-time in career receiving yards by a tight end, trailing only Shannon Sharpe, Antonio Gates, Jason Witten, and Tony Gonzalez. In terms of this season, Shannon Sharpe, if he gets what we talked about, those 16 yards, he'll pass Shannon Sharpe and move into 4th place all time. It's going to be very difficult for him to move into 3rd place and passing Antonio Gates, who's got about 1,800 yards more right now. So that will be something for next year, the year beyond, and then about 5,000 yards shy, or just over 5,000 yards shy of Tony Gonzalez for most receiving yards by a tight end in NFL history. Just need to play a few more seasons for that. And we know Travis Kelce reached that 10,000-yard milestone in just his 140th game, becoming the fastest tight end in NFL history to hit that mark. He bested Tony Gonzalez's previous record of 177 games. Kelce beat it by 37 games. So we're talking 2 full seasons. Travis Kelce hit 10,000 yards receiving by a tight end faster than the next best guy, or next fastest guy in that regard, in Tony Gonzalez. And Kelce's mark of 140 games to 10,000 career receiving yards ties wide receiver A.J. Green for the 16th fastest time to 10,000 yards by any pass catcher, wide receiver, or tight end in NFL history, which again, talked about Travis Kelce being used as a tight end and Andy Reid adjusting his offense to be using him as a tight end, but just very special when we're talking about surpassing records by 2 full seasons. Again, hitting 10,000 yards, 37 games faster than the next top guy. Here's Travis Kelce after the game on Sunday talking about the victory.
Honestly, right now, the win means more than any of those stats. Everybody's kind of been talking about me getting those stats at some point this year, so I mean it was on everybody's radar. But to come up here and get a win and you know, be a part of the crowd that is the 10,000 crew, you know, and Gates, Witten, Gonzalez, who am I forgetting here? Shannon Sharpe, man, the Bronco himself, man, the main guy I was chasing today. Yeah, I mean obviously all those guys are. That's unbelievable company to be in, and I've been very fortunate that I've had the coaches and the players around me to be able to have as much success in the NFL as I had.
Again, this Travis Kelce, after Sunday's win over the Broncos, hitting records and milestones that nobody in the history of the game has done. Is, again, fastest to 10,000 receiving yards. And then he talks about his teammates. He talks about the win being most important. And that stuff resonates. If you've been watching the show, heard anything I've said, that stuff matters. And they've got leadership on both sides of the ball, the Chiefs do. So I know Chiefs fans upset that they didn't blow them out. They're upset by getting out to a big lead, and then the Broncos coming back, all of those things. But in general, the team is moving in the right direction. They are 10-3 and have everything they want in front of them. I know Travis Kelce said he doesn't care about the records, but we do. We love this stuff. We love to brag on our guys, and we've got more from Travis Kelce because with his 71 receiving yards in Sunday's game, he also crossed the 1,000-yard mark for the 2022 NFL season, marking his franchise record extending 7th straight season with 1,000 yards receiving or more. Just special. And all those obviously are consecutive. And his 7,000-yard seasons are the most in NFL history by a tight end, leading second place by 3 seasons. And that was 4 with Tony Gonzalez, Rob Gronkowski, and Jason Witten all doing that. Also extends Kelce's streak of consecutive 1,000-yard seasons, like I mentioned, to 7, the most by a tight end in NFL history. Greg Olsen is the only other tight end in NFL history to record even 3 consecutive 1,000-yard seasons, and Olsen did that between 2014 and 2016. So Kelce's 7th consecutive 1,000-yard season moves him into a tie for the 7th longest streak of 1,000-yard seasons in NFL history for any pass catcher, and that's tying wide receivers Lance Allworth, Brandon Marshall, Jimmy Smith, Reggie Wayne. Just special company there when talking about pass catchers and not just tight ends. Only Tampa Bay wide receiver Mike Evans, who has 8 consecutive, entered the 2022 season with a longer active streak of consecutive 1,000-yard seasons than Travis Kelce. Again, we can gloss it up every way that we want, but it's just absolutely special what we've been seeing from Travis Kelce. No other way to put it. And one more Travis Kelce nugget, his 7 consecutive seasons now with 80 or more receptions, which he passed the 80 reception mark on Sunday as well, are the longest streak of consecutive seasons by a tight end in NFL history, ahead of a trio of players with Todd Christensen, Jimmy Graham, and Jason Witten, who are all tied for second with 4 consecutive 80-catch seasons. Kelce's 7 straight 80-catch seasons are tied for the 4th longest streak of such seasons by any pass catcher in NFL history. Kelce is now tied with Pro Football Hall of Fame wide receiver Tim Brown and Brandon Marshall, and trails only Pro Football Hall of Fame wide receiver Jerry Rice, Pro Football Hall of Fame wide receiver Marvin Harrison, and wide receiver Torrey Holt. That wraps up our Travis Kelce section of this episode. Just special what that dude has been doing. Let's move on to another guy who's been doing some pretty special stuff, and that is Patrick Mahomes. This is the Patrick Mahomes section of this episode of 10 Things. A lot more than just one, but we're going to give him this whole section because we got to fit everybody else in here as well, or it's going to be like 26 things every time. And then we have to update the title of the show every week, and it's a lot more work, everybody. We're sorry. But let's get to Patrick Mahomes section. With Sunday's victory, Patrick Mahomes is now 25-3 against AFC West opponents in his career, and he's 15-0 on the road. Again, Patrick Mahomes is undefeated on the road against the AFC West division. We talked about the Chiefs winning 14 straight over the Broncos. Patrick Mahomes, 15-0 in his career on the road against the AFC West. I might say that like 4 different times because it is bonkers to talk about that for a player as young as he is. I believe he's 27 years old. Always need to put that disclaimer in there as well, and talking about some of the records and paces and where he stands on the all-time Chiefs record mark. Sometimes I don't know how to feel about some of those records. But Patrick Mahomes crossed the 4,000-yard passing mark on Sunday with his 352 yards passing again against the Broncos, which coming into that game, one of the top defenses in the NFL, had only allowed more than 20 points 3 times this season. And with Patrick Mahomes crossing that 4,000-yard passing mark, he did that for the 5th time in his career, joining Pro Football Hall of Fame quarterback Peyton Manning as the only players in NFL history with at least 4,000 passing yards in 5 of their first 6 seasons. And with that win, Mahomes moved to 10-0 against the Broncos himself, becoming the 6th quarterback since 1970 to win each of his first 10 career starts against an opponent. Again, not normalizing greatness. And here is one of Patrick Mahomes' buddies, Travis Kelce, talking about him after the game.
It's the play after the play that I like to call kind of the extended play that makes Pat Mahomes the best quarterback in the National Football League. Even when you think you got us, we still got 1-5 back there making plays. And
it's obviously talking about the pass to Jerick McKinnon, which we'll get to in a minute. But yeah, there's not a lot you can do when Patrick Mahomes starts scrambling around, and it's already hard enough for the defensive backs to stay with guys. But when the receivers, the tight ends, the running backs, everybody on these scramble plays are all on the same page of just get open because this guy's going to make a play, just makes those guys fight that much harder to get open. Those guys staying locked in, not giving up on plays, all those things matter when you got a quarterback doing the things that we've seen from Patrick Mahomes, who eclipsed 300 yards again in this game as he completed 28 of 42 for 352 yards against the Broncos. It marks Mahomes' 39th career game with 300 or more passing yards and is his 8th 300-yard game of this season, in a season that a lot of people thought it was going to be a downtime because of one player they lost. There was a lot of hate, a lot of things being said that turned out not to be true at all. Chiefs still leading the league in ton of offensive categories, and Patrick Mahomes still up there with Jalen Hurts. I believe I saw that he's now Jalen Hurts is the favorite to win MVP. Those things will go back and forth. But Patrick Mahomes had his 39th 300 or more passing yard games, and that's the most in franchise history and the most in the league since 2017. And his 8 300-yard passing games are tied for the third most in a single season in franchise history. Again, we've got 4 games left to go in the regular season as Patrick Mahomes tied for third with Trent Green, who had 8 300-yard passing games back in 2004. And Patrick Mahomes is looking to break the record of the 2 guys ahead of him, which are also, you guessed it, Patrick Mahomes, who had 10 300-yard passing games in 2018 and 9 300-yard passing games in 2020. So I think it would be pretty special to see Patrick Mahomes, in 3 of the final 4 games of the regular season, go for over 300 yards so he can set the record for most 300-yard passing games in Chiefs franchise history. Again, in a season that a lot of people thought was going to be a down year, or at least a reset year for the Chiefs offense, because a lot of new faces and losing the most explosive player in NFL history, and Tyreek Hill, who's continuing to do his thing down in Miami. But the Chiefs offense, they just keep rolling. We can't talk about Patrick Mahomes' game yesterday and not talk about those interceptions, because granted, just 3 plays out of many, but most important thing offensively, take care of the football. He talked about it after the game. Andy Reid talked about it after the game. Really provided a spark for the Broncos. People have a lot of strong opinions on the Chiefs defense and allowing them to get back into it. But the catalysts from many of that were these turnovers, giving those short fields. The first 2 touchdowns the Broncos scored were off of Patrick Mahomes' interceptions. And here's Patrick Mahomes after the game talking about those interceptions.
Just 3 bad decisions. If you look at them, the first one probably could just took the easy throw to outside, try to force it to Kels. The second one, I really was just trying to burn it, and he made a hell of a play. I was trying to just throw it away at someone's feet. And then the third one was it's bad, just because the situation. We're in field goal range, especially here at altitude, and if I throw the ball away, no one's open, so just throw the ball away and let Harrison end the game. But luckily for me, the rest of the team stepped up. Defense made a lot of stops in critical moments when we were putting them in some bad situations. And I thought even like special teams, they made the field goals. Tommy flipped the field a couple of great times for us. And the guys around me stepped up and made some plays happen.
Yeah, one of those times that he's talking about the defense making a stop in a big moment was after the huge play, the beginning of the second half, the screen pass that went for 70 yards and the touchdown or whatever the yardage was. But offense goes out there, gets 3 and out, and the defense kind of settles things a little bit. Again, closer than any of us wanted to, especially after 27-0. I put out on social media that I'm hoping Chad Henne plays in the second half of this game, and pretty much jinxed it. I think right after that was the first interception. So if you're looking at somebody to blame me for that. But that wraps up our Patrick Mahomes section in this episode of 10 Things. Again, we appreciate all you for hanging out. This show is presented by my friends at KC Strength and Conditioning. Again, call John Renzi if you know somebody that needs baseball or softball training in the Kansas City area. Played baseball with John growing up. He's always been that guy to know how to maximize a body's performance and what it needs to get the most out of it on a baseball or softball diamond. All right, let's move on to number 6 on our 10 things, and that is Jerick McKinnon having one of the most Crazy plays in we talk about this all the time. Patrick Mahomes highlight reel each year could be anybody's best ever. But the 56-yard touchdown he threw to Jet McKinnon will be on Patrick Mahomes' highlight video when he goes to the Canton. It will be on every highlight reel that Patrick Mahomes ever has. That's how special this player was. As the note reads, thanks to the Chiefs communication department, that Jerick McKinnon parlayed an impromptu sidearm pass from Mahomes on a 56-yard touchdown at the beginning of the second quarter. That 56-yard touchdown marked the longest reception of McKinnon's career, and then he scored on a 7-yard receiving touchdown with 7:23 left on the clock in the second quarter as well. And on top of setting a career high long reception with that 56-yarder, McKinnon cemented a single season career high 4 receiving touchdowns this season with his 2 touchdowns on Sunday against the Broncos. He finished the contest with 22 rushing yards on 6 carries as well, and 112 receiving yards on 7 catches and 2 touchdowns. Just wrapped up a fantastic day for McKinnon, and that 112 yards is the second time in his career he's gone over 100 yards receiving in a game. Just very special to see Jerick McKinnon make the plays that he was for the Chiefs offense. Not running a lot of the same plays that we'd see, but when you don't have Kadarius Toney, we don't have McCole Hardman, who may be returning. He could return against the Houston Texans this week. It'll be something to pay attention to throughout some of the injury reports and some of the media stuff that Coach Reid, when he gets asked by the media as far as what McCole Hardman's availability will be. Some more coming on that, but Jerick McKinnon just providing that spark for the offense of a guy who can take a short pass, like we saw in the flat. Those wheel routes, some of those shorter passes out of the backfield, get the linebackers, everybody thinking. We saw it in the playoffs last year. Jerick McKinnon is one of the more underrated offensive weapons for this Chiefs team. Always seems to make a big play, especially when you get down into the defense's 40, 30-yard line, those strike distances. A lot of screens, always seems to make a big play. So shout out to Jerick McKinnon, who spoke about that crazy play from Patrick Mahomes after the game.
He peeped at me, but I wasn't sure what he was going to do with it, so I kind of was just waiting to see what happened, and he got it out there. He gave me time to get to it. I mean, you've seen it since he's been in the league. He's been doing, amazing things like that, and they always emphasize scramble drill, throughout camp and the season, and whenever he breaks the pocket, I think guys do a pretty good job at getting over. Mostly like he finds Kelsey on some crazy stuff most of the time, and just trying to be there for him, and like I said, man, he made an amazing play.
And that was Jerick McKinnon after the game last night. It just makes me laugh that he says, maybe he peeked at me. I don't know. They don't even have to, they understand the quarterback doesn't have to be looking at him to give him a ball, let alone give him a ball and have him go 56 yards on a touchdown on a no-look grenade tossed pass, which again is going to be on a highlight reel for Patrick Mahomes forever. So shout out to Jerick McKinnon, who's going to live in the highlight reels forever with that play from Patrick Mahomes. Similar to what we saw earlier this year, I believe it was against the Bucs, the touchdown to Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Where he ran along the sideline and kind of threw a similar type pass inside, like the 2-yard line. So everybody remembers that play as well. So shout out to Jerick McKinnon, continues to get it done for the Chiefs offense in a big way. All right, let's move on to number 7, and that's Juju Smith-Schuster. Gets his touchdown. It was his 3rd touchdown of the season, put the Chiefs up 34-21, and seemingly kind of nailed the game down for the Chiefs in what turned out to be a big win, even though it wasn't the way that we wanted the Chiefs to finish out that game with that 27-0 lead early. Most important thing is that they got that victory, and that fact that Juju finished the game with a team high 9 receptions, went for 74 yards and his 1 touchdown. And cool nugget here, per Next Gen Stats out on Twitter, that Patrick Mahomes' time to throw on that touchdown to Juju Smith-Schuster, 6.14 seconds. That is an unfair amount of time to ask any defensive back to cover anybody, let alone when you don't need to give anybody a whole lot of space for Patrick Mahomes to be able to find them. So special on that play. And Mahomes now has 5 touchdown passes on extended dropbacks, which according to Next Gen Stats, an extended dropback means 4 or more seconds. So Mahomes has thrown 5 TD passes on extended dropbacks inside the opponent's 12-yard line this season. Re-say this in other ways to make sure everybody understands, but no other quarterback has more than 3 such completions. So when he's inside the opponent's 12-yard line, inside the red zone, he has 5 touchdowns where he's scrambled for at least 4 seconds. Again, everything's constricted, not a lot of time for guys to get open, not a lot of space. And Patrick Mahomes, again, just continues to get it done. More fun stats thanks to our friends over at Next Gen Stats. All right, let's move on to number 8. That's a house call for Willie Gay, who had one of the most impressive plays overall in this game as he intercepted a pass from Broncos quarterback Russell Wilson and returned it 47 yards for a touchdown in the game's second quarter. It was Gay's first career touchdown and his first interception on the season. A little surprising there, as I know he had high hopes for himself coming into this season with interceptions and making plays in the passing game. But Willie Gay now owns 3 total interceptions in his career, and he finished Sunday afternoon in that game with 5 solo tackles, including 1 tackle for loss, 1 pass defensed, and obviously that 1 big interception. After the game, Willie Gay was asked about that play.
I realized what kind of play it was. They was just trying to, bring me down so they can get it over my head. So I was like, I wasn't going to blitz to the quarterback. I was going to try to get my hand up, and that's what I did. And luckily it came right to me once I knocked it down. So after that, I just knew I had to make Russ miss, and rest was, to the end zone. So,
all right, good stuff from Willie Gay. That was one of the more impressive plays that we have seen. And let's move on to number 9. 9 and 10 kind of blend together a little bit, but I'm going to give my guy George Karlaftis his own one here with number 9, and that's him disrupting Russell Wilson for a 3rd straight week. Karlaftis recorded a sack. His sack was the 4th Chiefs sack of the day, and there are only 2 rookies that have more sacks right now than George Karlaftis. And we've made jokes about it because I had predicted and kind of prognosticated that George Karlaftis could break Derek Thomas's rookie sack record for the Chiefs, which I believe is 10.5. He's got 3.5 sacks right now, so needs to pick up that pace a little bit. But in terms of pressures and disruptions and affecting the quarterback in the way that defensive coordinators always mention, George Karlaftis has been good in that area. He's been up there with Aiden Hutchinson, if not leading the NFL with pressures from rookie edge rushers again. But it is a little surprising, and it stands out a little bit that only 2 guys have more sacks than George Karlaftis, and that is Aiden Hutchinson, who's got 7 sacks for the Lions. And then another Lions linebacker, James Houston, has 4 sacks. Those are the only 2 guys that have more sacks than George Karlaftis as a rookie edge rusher. So you could say that he has the most of any rookie edge rusher in the AFC. And his Karlaftis finished Sunday's game with 3 tackles, including 1 tackle for loss, the 1 sack, which resulted in a loss of 4 yards and 1 other quarterback pressure. And Karlaftis has continued to make the impact the quarterback with his passes defensed with 6 so far this season, which is tied for 3rd most on the team this year. Probably learning a lot from Carlos Dunlap, who we've talked about often as the 3rd most passes defensed for any player since that became a stat more than, I believe, 25 years ago. So great to see George Karlaftis continuing to make an impact. You just got to average about 1.5, 2 sacks a game down the stretch to break that record from Derek Thomas. So can't put it past him. It's not like they're playing the greatest teams in the world down the stretch, but good stuff to see from George Karlaftis, starting to bring quarterbacks down as we get closer to the end of the regular season. All right. I know I said 9 and 10 kind of blend together, and number 10, just titled Sack Nation. The Chiefs defense continued to affect the quarterback at a high level on Sunday, recording 6 sacks of Broncos quarterback Russell Wilson in that game. And that 6 sacks is a season high for the Chiefs defense and the most since having 9 at Denver back on October 17th, 2019. I remember that game. I was on the sideline for that game, and that was a lot of fun to watch. This Chiefs defense is no stranger to high sack games, though. They have 4 other games this season with at least 5 sacks on the season. The Chiefs are 12-0 when recording 6 or more sacks on their opponent since head coach Andy Reid took over the Chiefs back in 2013. And through 63 seasons, the Chiefs have recorded 6 or more sacks 61 different times. And in those 61 games, the Chiefs, not surprisingly, pretty good. They're 55-5-1 and outscored their opponents 1,793 to 753. So no shocker if you're bringing down the opposing quarterback a lot. You're probably giving your offense some good field position, and you're keeping the other team from putting up points. So not a huge surprise to see those numbers, but great to see the Chiefs defense continue to rack up sacks. They've got 42 as a group on the season, and that's after last year having only 31 throughout their 17-game regular season. And the fact that they've got 42 already this year through just 13 games is a testament to Brett Veach and his coaching staff and everybody for really taking care of an issue that a lot of us had talked about all offseason. And whether it's the addition of Carlos Dunlap, safeties, and everybody getting after it on the back end, it's really not just one guy leading that. I know Chris Jones leads the team with 11 sacks, but everybody's chipping in here, including George Karlaftis, Mike Dana, who's right here on the next nugget. Mike Dana recorded a 9-yard sack of Russell Wilson in the first quarter of Sunday's game, and he's now tied his single season career high with 3 sacks in 2022 after having 3 sacks last year. Dana now has 8.5 career sacks and added 3 tackles, one of which was solo, including 1 tackle for loss and a quarterback pressure in Sunday's game as well. So it's a few different guys getting after it. And that's one thing that some Chiefs fans and a lot of us complained at different times. We complained last week against the Bengals because they were not getting any pass rush. So for them to come out and get it done against the Broncos on Sunday in that regard was a welcome sight. Chris Jones forced a 4th down with his big sack as he took down Russell Wilson in the second quarter for a loss of 8 yards. Chris Jones now has 11 sacks on the season, the second highest single season mark of his career after recording 15.5 sacks back in 2018. And with today's sack, his career total now moves up to 60.5 sacks. And Jones didn't just stop with that sack. He also had 4 solo tackles, including 1 for loss, 2 quarterback pressures, and a pass defensed. All right, and Juan Thornhill, safety, recorded his first career sack in that game in the first quarter against the Broncos yesterday. It was an 8-yard loss on the play as he sacked Russell Wilson. It was the first quarterback sack, again, of Juan Thornhill's career. He finished the game with 7 tackles, 5 of which were solo, including 1 tackle for loss. The sack, which netted a loss of 8 yards, 1 quarterback pressure, and 1 pass defensed. All right, so great to see the Chiefs defense getting after it and getting after the quarterback. That's something we're going to need to continue to see, obviously, as they go down the stretch and playing teams that they should absolutely beat. Best way to do that, Patrick Mahomes, we talked about it earlier, take care of the football. Very few teams are going to be able to keep up. And no teams the Chiefs play down the stretch will be able to keep up with the Chiefs offense if they do not turn the ball over and give short fields and easy chances at points. So they get that done on the offensive side, take care of the football and bring down the opposing quarterback. It's not only a good recipe for every team in the NFL to win, but definitely this Chiefs team that is going to have a better coach and a better quarterback and overall more talent in the teams they play over the next 4 weeks. Again, hoping to get that number 1 seed. Need the Buffalo Bills to drop a couple of games or drop at least 1 game, and they have got a much more difficult schedule than the Chiefs, talking about the Buffalo Bills, who've got the Dolphins, the Bears, the Bengals, and the Patriots on tap to close out their regular season. Would be a little surprised to see the Bills go 4-0 down that stretch. And if they do, they've earned it. And they've earned the number 1 seed by not only beating the Chiefs, but the Chiefs not taking care of business against the Colts, which is always going to come back to haunt them, and then dropping, obviously, that game to the Bengals. All right, let's move on to the final nugget in this one, and it's kind of a fun one. Got to give the punter a little shout out here. Is Tommy Townsend is our number 11 bonus thing to know following this game. In his 3rd year, punter Tommy Townsend set a career long with a 76-yard punt in the 3rd quarter of Sunday's game. Townsend's out-punted his previous long by 8 yards, which he recorded in his 2nd year in the league last year. Townsend finished the game with 3 punts for 199 yards, including 1 inside the 20 and averaging 66.3 yards. His net average on his punts on Sunday against the Broncos was 52.7 yards. So we have talked a lot about Chiefs special teams this year. You go back to that game against the Colts, could seemingly say that cost them the win in that phase of the game. But for Tommy Townsend to flip the field like that was an underlying great thing, obviously, coming out of this game. But you need everybody to step up at different points. And maybe we'd be talking about this game a little differently if Tommy Townsend didn't go out and have such a fantastic performance and make things a little more difficult on the Broncos offense as they stormed back from that 27-0 deficit early in the game. That obviously the turnovers gave him a short field, had something to do with it, but Tommy Townsend flipping the field a couple times was huge for the Chiefs in this one. And that's all we've got. Those are the 11 things. I'm sure there's more nuggets and fun things to come out of this one. If you've got some that we didn't mention, let us know in the comment section. Spread that knowledge around. Let Chiefs fans know what stood out to you from this performance. A lot of this stuff's going to be more on the positive end because we're talking about records and stats and those kinds of things. But at the end of the day, the Chiefs take care of the football a little bit better, tackle a little bit better, and not let teams that shouldn't be hang around. They'll be in a good spot as we go down the stretch of the regular season. And the Chiefs try to get that number 1 seed in the playoffs. Again, appreciate all you for hanging out on this episode of 10 Things presented by our friends at KC Strength and Conditioning. We appreciate your support of what we got going on here at KC Sports Network. And we don't just cover the Chiefs. If you're listening on the podcast, search KCSN on your favorite podcast platform. You can find our channels covering the Kansas City soccer teams, the Sporting KC and the KC Current. Got some great content over there. We cover the Kansas City Royals, and we cover KU, K-State, and Mizzou with former insiders, guys who are plugged in, people who are plugged into these teams. A lot of good content going on at KC Sports Network all across the board. We appreciate your support. Appreciate you hanging out with us today. Hope you'll all have a fantastic start to your week, and we'll have more content here at KCSN as we get ready for that game next week against the Houston Texans and continue wrapping up and breaking down what we saw from the Chiefs against the Broncos on Sunday. Again, appreciate all of you. We'll see you next time.